Tino stood in front of the glittering crowd, smiling beside his new, slim wife. But in the back, Miso, the woman he abandoned while she carried his child, stood tall, dressed in success, power, and pain. When their eyes met, Tino's smile vanished, because tonight he wasn't the one in control. And before the night ended, the man who once humiliated her would be on his knees, begging. Miso was a simple, kind-hearted woman from a small town called Kalema. Everyone knew her for her warm smile and her big heart. When she married Tino, a young man full of big dreams and plans, she believed they would build a happy life together. Tino was starting to make a name for himself in business, and Miso stood by him every step of the way. She cooked for him, prayed for his success, and cheered him on, even when things were tough. But everything started to change when Miso became pregnant. As her belly grew, so did her body. She gained weight, as many women do during pregnancy, and sometimes she felt sad and tired. Deep inside, she was scared, but she kept smiling and tried to stay strong because she wanted to be a good wife and mother. All she wanted was for Tino to love and support her the way she had supported him. But Tino started acting differently. He stopped looking at her the way he used to. Instead of comforting her, he began to make small, hurtful comments. He would joke about how big she had become, saying things like, "You're not the woman I married." At first, Miso laughed it off, thinking he didn't mean it. But as days passed, his words cut deeper. He no longer wanted to take her out in public, and he barely spent time with her at home. Miso felt alone, even though she was carrying their child. She could feel the distance growing between them, but she kept holding on, hoping Tino would see her pain and remember the love they once shared. Little did she know, her real struggle was only just beginning. At 7 months pregnant, when Miso needed love the most, her whole world came crashing down. One afternoon, as she rested at home, whispers from neighbors reached her ears. They said her husband, Tino, was openly seen with another woman, a slim, flashy lady named Layla. At first, Miso didn't want to believe it. She thought, "No, Tino wouldn't do this to me. Not now, not when I'm carrying his child." But deep inside, her heart started to break even before she saw the truth. Days later, Miso's worst fear came to life. She caught Tino at an event, proudly holding Layla's hand, smiling for cameras like he had no wife at home waiting for him. Miso stood frozen, her heart pounding, her belly heavy with their unborn baby. When she confronted him, tears running down her face, Tino didn't even show shame. Instead, he looked at her with cold eyes and said words that stabbed her soul. "Miso," he said, "I need someone who matches my status now. Look at you. You've changed. Layla fits my image." Those words crushed her spirit. The man she had sacrificed everything for, the man she loved with all her heart, now treated her like she was nothing. As if that pain wasn't enough, Tino made things worse. He told her to pack her things and leave the house, their home. He no longer wanted her there. 7 months pregnant, with no money, no job, and nowhere to go, Miso was forced out like a stranger. With tears in her eyes and shame burning her face, she returned to her old village in Kalema. Her aging mother, weak and struggling, opened her arms and welcomed her back. But Miso could feel the stares, the whispers from people calling her the woman who was thrown out. She felt humiliated, broken, and abandoned. Everything she built, every dream she had, was shattered in a moment. Her heart ached, not just for herself, but for the innocent child growing inside her. She cried through the nights, wondering how she would survive this storm. Miso's days grew darker after she returned to her mother's small house in the village. The pain in her heart felt heavier than the child she was carrying. She cried every night, her tears soaking the old pillow she used as comfort. People in the village whispered behind her back. Some laughed, calling her the dumped wife. Others shook their heads in pity. Every time Miso stepped outside, she could feel their eyes following her, judging her swollen body and her broken spirit. She had no money, no job, and no husband to lean on. The shame burned deep inside her. Then, one cold, rainy night, her labor pains started. With no one but her aging mother by her side, Miso struggled through the night. Her body was weak, but her spirit fought hard. And when morning came, Her cries were joined by the soft, innocent cry of a baby girl. Miso looked down and saw her daughter, tiny and perfect, with eyes that seemed to shine even in the dim room. She named her Zira. At that moment, even with her body shaking from pain and her heart heavy with sadness, Miso felt a small flame of hope spark inside her. But life didn't get easier. Feeding Zira became a daily struggle. Miso had little to eat herself, and finding enough for her baby felt like an endless battle. Some days, she went hungry just to make sure Zira had a little milk. Neighbors continued to mock her. They laughed, saying things like, "Look at her now. The rich man's wife turned beggar." Their words stung like fresh wounds. But every time Miso wanted to give up, she would look at Zira's face. Her baby's tiny fingers, soft breath, and innocent smile gave her strength she didn't know she had. Miso realized that no one was coming to save her. If she wanted a better life for Zira, she had to fight for it herself. Each tear she shed became a promise that Zira would never feel the same shame and pain she did. Day by day, Miso's sorrow slowly turned into quiet determination. Her body was weak, but her will started to grow stronger. The more people mocked her, the harder she clung to her dream of giving Zira a future they could both be proud of. And in the silence of those long nights, with Zira sleeping softly beside her, Miso whispered to herself, "This is not the end. I will rise again." One morning, as Miso watched little Zira sleeping, she made a decision. She couldn't continue living in pain and shame. She had to find a way to survive, for her baby's sake. So, with the little money her mother gave her, Miso bought some cheap ingredients and started cooking. She made the traditional dishes her mother taught her, but she added her own special touches, spices and flavors that made the food taste different, rich, and unforgettable. Then, with a small wooden table, she went to the market and set up her tiny food stall. At first, people looked at her with doubt. Some still whispered, "Isn't that the woman Tino threw away?" But when they tasted her food, everything changed. The aroma pulled people closer, and the flavors made them smile. Customers started telling their friends, and soon, more people came just to taste Miso's special dishes. Each day, her little stall grew busier. People from nearby towns began traveling to Kalima just to eat at her stall. They said her food had a magic touch, the kind that comforted the heart and filled the soul. With every plate she served, Miso felt a little stronger. The pain in her heart didn't go away overnight, but cooking gave her purpose. As the days turned into months, she started waking up early, full of energy and hope. She began taking walks in the morning, lifting heavy pots with ease, and moving around her kitchen with strength. Without even realizing it, Miso's body changed. She lost weight, not because she wanted to please anyone, but because she was working hard and taking care of herself again. She looked in the mirror one day and smiled. This time, it wasn't about beauty, it was about power. Miso was no longer the broken woman people laughed at. She was becoming someone new, someone who was building her own success, step by step. And every evening, when she counted the coins she earned and saw little Zira laughing, Miso knew deep inside this was just the beginning of her rise. She was no longer surviving, she was starting to shine. Years passed, and Miso's little food stall became something much bigger. Her food was loved by everyone who tasted it, and people kept coming back, bringing their friends and families. With the money she saved, Miso opened her first small restaurant. She named it Mama Zira's Kitchen, after her daughter who gave her the strength to rise. The restaurant was simple, but the food was full of love and flavor, just like at the market stall. People from faraway towns and even cities traveled just to eat there. Soon, the little restaurant became so popular that Miso opened a second one, then a third. Before she knew it, Mama Zira's Kitchen had spread across the country. But Miso didn't forget where she came from or the pain she went through. She remembered the women who, like her, were left alone and broken. So, she made it her mission to help them. She started hiring single mothers and abandoned women to work in her kitchens. She trained them, taught them how to cook, and gave them jobs so they could feed their children and rebuild their lives. Her restaurants became more than places to eat. They became a safe home for women who needed a second chance. People admired Miso, not just for her success, but for her big heart. Her story started spreading everywhere. Newspapers wrote about the woman who rose from shame to build an empire. Magazines put her face on their covers, calling her the Queen of Resilience and a true inspiration to women everywhere. Miso, who once cried in the dark, was now shining brightly. She walked with confidence, dressed in beautiful clothes that showed her success, but her smile stayed warm and humble. Everywhere she went, people clapped and cheered for her. She was no longer just Miso from Kalama. She had become a symbol of hope and power for every woman who had ever been broken and left behind. And through it all, her love for her daughter Zira and her mission to lift other women remained her strongest light. Tino, the man who once walked around like a king, slowly started losing everything. His business, which used to shine so bright, began to fall apart. He made bad decisions, trusting the wrong people and spending money carelessly. Soon, scandals started following him. People whispered about how he cheated in deals and failed to pay his workers. His business partners pulled away, and customers stopped coming. Tino's name, once respected, became a joke in town. As things got worse, his glamorous wife Layla, the woman he had left Miso for, showed her true colors. She packed her bags and left him without looking back. But that was not all. Layla ran off with a man even richer than Tino used to be, and the whole story spread like wildfire. Newspapers wrote about it, and people laughed at Tino's shame. He, who once threw Miso out like she was nothing, now faced public embarrassment so deep it burned. His debts piled up, and the banks started calling. Friends who once praised him now ignored his calls. Tino, who once lived in a big house, struggled to keep up with payments. He sold his cars, his watches, and even his expensive suits just to survive. Life became hard, and the pain of losing everything hit him every single day. Then, one day, while sitting alone in his small rented room, Tino heard a name that made his heart stop. Miso. He heard people talking about her, about how she had become a national success. They spoke about her chain of restaurants, her face on magazine covers, and how women everywhere admired her strength. Tino couldn't believe it. The woman he once called useless had built an empire while he sat drowning in shame and debt. The more he heard about Miso's victory, the heavier his heart grew. Regret and jealousy ate him up inside. He never imagined that the woman he threw away would rise so high while he fell so low. Tino, once so proud and cruel, was now a broken man, desperate and stunned by the mighty comeback of the woman he had once destroyed. Miso couldn't believe it when she received the letter. She was being invited to the capital city to receive a national award for entrepreneurship. Her hard work, her struggle, her tears, everything was finally being honored in front of the whole country. She smiled as she looked at her daughter Zira, knowing this victory was not just hers, but theirs. It felt like a dream come true, and her heart swelled with pride. People who once mocked her now celebrated her. The whole town buzzed with excitement, cheering for the woman who had risen from nothing. But in another corner of the city, Tino's life looked very different. Broke and desperate, he had been picking up any small job he could find. His once proud face was now tired and hollow. Through a struggling catering agency, he got hired to serve food at a big national event. He was just happy to have a job, not even caring about the details. He didn't know that the event he was hired for was the same one where Miso would shine as the chief guest. As the event drew closer, whispers started going around. Tino heard people talking about Mama Zira receiving the big award. At first, he didn't think much of it, but when he finally looked at the event flyer and saw Miso's face, his heart dropped. The woman he once mocked, the wife he threw out, was now being honored while he would be standing in the background, serving drinks and food. Tension filled the air. The thought of seeing Miso again made Tino's stomach turn. He couldn't sleep, knowing that everyone at that event would see the mighty difference between them now. The date came closer, and with every passing day, Tino's fear grew. Deep down, he knew this reunion was going to crush whatever little pride he had left. And Miso, she was ready, calm, strong, and shining brighter than ever, prepared to face the man who once broke her. The world was about to witness a powerful moment. The big day finally arrived. The hall was grand, filled with bright lights and important people from all over the country. Cameras flashed everywhere. As Miso stepped into the room, heads turned. She looked stunning. dressed in a beautiful gown that made her glow like a queen. Her smile was calm but powerful, and her steps were steady, full of pride. People stood up, clapping and cheering her name. Mama Zira! Mama Zira! It was her moment, and the whole place knew it. But in the corner, wearing a stained apron and carrying a tray of drinks, was Tino. His hands trembled as he watched her enter. The woman he once insulted, called worthless, and threw out was now being celebrated like royalty. Tino's face burned with shame. Every cheer for Miso felt like a slap to him. He tried to hide behind the other servers, but it was no use. His fall from grace was now on full display, and everyone could see it. As Miso walked to the stage, she caught sight of Tino standing in the shadows. For a moment, their eyes met, but instead of anger, Miso's eyes showed strength and peace. She knew this was her time, not to attack, but to inspire. She took the microphone, and the hall went silent, waiting for her words. With a deep breath, Miso began her speech. She thanked everyone for recognizing her journey, but then her voice grew firm. She spoke about the pain of being rejected, the nights she cried alone, and how society laughed at women who were left broken. But she looked around the hall and said, "Today I stand here, not as a victim, but as proof that no woman is finished just because someone leaves her. We rise, we rebuild, and we shine." The audience erupted in applause, some even in tears. Women in the room nodded, feeling her words in their hearts. And Tino, he stood frozen, his tray shaking. Every word Miso spoke felt like it was meant for him, and it was. She didn't call his name, but the whole room knew. Tables had turned, literally and loudly. Miso was no longer the woman he abandoned. She was a symbol of strength for every broken woman watching. And at that moment, everyone knew she had won. Backstage, after the event, Miso was surrounded by people congratulating her. The air was full of laughter, claps, and flashes from cameras. But then, through the crowd, Tino appeared. His face looked tired and desperate, his clothes wrinkled from working all night. As soon as he saw Miso standing tall and glowing, he couldn't hold back his emotions. He pushed through the people and fell hard to his knees right in front of her. The room went silent in shock. With tears streaming down his face, Tino grabbed Miso's hands, begging, "Please, Miso, forgive me. I was wrong. I lost everything. Please take me back. We can start over. I'm sorry." His voice shook as he spoke, loud enough for everyone around to hear. His pride was gone. The same man who once called her useless was now on the floor, begging in front of her and the world. The cameras didn't miss a thing. Phones came out quickly, and within seconds, people were recording the dramatic scene. The whispers grew louder, and soon reporters pushed closer, capturing every word, every tear, every movement. Tino, once a proud businessman, was now trending as the man who knelt before the woman he destroyed. But Miso stood still, looking down at him with calm eyes. She didn't shout, she didn't insult. She gently pulled her hands away and said in a soft but strong voice, "I forgive you, Tino, but I can never go back to the place you left me in." Her words hit deeper than any slap. The crowd around gasped and then started clapping, some even cheering her name again. The video of that moment spread like wildfire online. People shared it, calling Miso an inspiration. Women everywhere praised her strength, saying she represented every woman who had ever been betrayed, but still rose higher. And Tino's kneeling face became a symbol, not of love, but of regret and downfall. The tables had truly turned, and the world was watching. Miso looked at Tino, still kneeling and crying, and she took a deep breath. Her heart felt light, because at that moment, she knew she had truly won. Not by hurting him back, but by rising above it all. She softly said, "I forgive you, Tino, not for you, but for me. But I will never go back to the life you left me in." Her words were clear, firm, and final. Tino's face fell, and the people around clapped even louder, cheering for Miso's strength. But she didn't stay in that moment for long. She had bigger dreams waiting. After the event, Miso went straight back to work. She wasn't interested in gossip or Tino's tears. Her focus was now on growing her foundation even bigger. She started planning to open new training schools in different cities, places where abandoned women could come, learn skills, and rebuild their lives, just like she did. She wanted every woman who felt broken to find hope again. Time passed, and Miso's empire grew stronger. Her story kept inspiring millions. and people traveled from far just to see the woman who turned pain into power. But for Miso, her biggest joy wasn't the fame or money. It was seeing other women stand tall again because of her help. One evening, as the sun was setting, Miso stood on the rooftop of her newest and biggest restaurant. Beside her was her daughter Zira, now a beautiful teenager with bright eyes full of dreams. They both looked out at the city skyline, glowing with lights. Miso wrapped her arm around Zira and smiled. They had come so far, from tears and shame to victory and pride. At that moment, Miso knew she was truly free. No chains from the past, no weight of old pain, just her daughter, and a future wide open with possibilities. She was powerful, victorious, and unbreakable. And as the city lights sparkled below, it was clear this was Miso's new destiny.